everyone. Welcome back to Open Line. Glad you're with us. We're talking about how severe is the worker shortage? Why is there a worker shortage? We have with us TSU Economics professor Dr. Achintya Ray and several calls. So let's go to the phones. Let's go to Cheryl. Hello, Cheryl.
I'm here.
Go right ahead, Cheryl. What's on your mind?
Yes, I just wanted to say that in the context, where we are talking about service worker jobs, many of those jobs have not been sustainable. In other words, no health care. If they do, it takes their whole check to afford it. No retirement. And oftentimes people in these populations, they are paying to work. They are not gaining by working. They're paying to work. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, is there any data about how the remote workplace, we know that has increased. Has that had an impact on people, like you say, who are looking at the risk factors? I have a daughter that was able to get a remote job, and she does not want to go back simply because of COVID. So any comment or data on that?
All right, Cheryl, thank you. What do you think, Doctor?
I think both of them are very interesting points, and both of them are true. I think that's what we have been discussing in the first part of our conversation, that when you talked about white collar, blue collar transition, yes, the wages have been much lower compared to what the market could have sustained. So yes, I think one point that I have been trying to kind of say over and over again, I do expect that if this demand-supply condition get worsened, I mean, if there is more demand than supply, the wages will have to rise. And there is a very simple relationship, we call it the Phillips curve, which basically says that as unemployment goes down, basically employment is way up, you are going to see some inflation going forward. And on the top of that, there is this idea called this non-accelerated inflation rate of unemployment. So basically, there is a threshold, Nairu, there is a threshold if the unemployment rate is too low, and we are in that threshold, I mean, in our area, where we are going to expect those inflations to going up. And by the way, we think in Nashville that we are in a bad shape, but I have some numbers. Nashville is about 3.9%, the latest data from Federal Reserve, and Atlanta is about 3.9% also.
For unemployment?
Unemployment.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Knoxville is 3.6, and Birmingham 3.4, and Huntsville 2.2.
Wow.
So up and down the region, if you think about that, only higher I think is Memphis, which is about a little over 6%, I think. But under 4%, under 4.5%, that's pretty close to full employment. I mean, full employment doesn't mean that we have zero unemployment. And I think the second part of the question that Cheryl was asking was the remote work. It is going to have an impact because there are several reasons for that. Number one, some employers are going to find it in their advantage to have remote work. So think about what the tech companies are doing now. They are competing globally for talent, right? And if they say that I'm going to fire you for not coming to office, the worker is most likely to say good luck. Because those skills are so short in supply. So they might be working from Nashville, Tennessee, or Boise, Idaho, or who knows where, right? And think about the impact of that thing. For some jobs, it could be anything from back office to jobs that could be easily migrated to an online domain. That could be some of the jobs even which have been traditionally in person. For an example, a radiologist looking at all these pictures while enjoying a nice life in a mountain area. So that's the nature. Technology always disrupts the labor market. It does. And none of those technologies are new. They were not invented during the pandemic. They have always been here. The rate of adoption has definitely gone up. And one last point, what happens when companies have remote workers? They save on commercial real estate. That's a huge bunch of money.
Right.
And think about it. Think about a company that has maybe 5,000, 10,000 employees, and instead of getting them to a resort for an annual retreat and brainstorming sessions, they can simply have it over Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatnot and distribute them to groups. And that can save tons of money for many things. So there is a cost thing, there is a technology. Even Schumpeter says creative destruction. So some jobs are going to be transported into the domain. So it is going to be a long arc that we are only beginning to see.
This has opened up a crazy new world. And that's for, again, those higher level jobs. I'm also very focused on those hospitality jobs and the impact there. But let's go to Ann. Hello, Ann.
Yes, good evening.
Hi.
I have two things. First, the same week or shortly thereafter, Bill Lee made his statement about the jobs. The New York Times ran a study on that, and only 3% of those 200,000 jobs paid over $20,000. So that just meant that the rest of those people were left to live off of less than $20,000, something that's very difficult. And my other point was, when COVID hit, an awful lot of families had to realign their priorities and found that they could go without a lot. I was impressed with my daughter's ability to do that. One of them was with the hospitality. She had her degree, her husband had his degree, and what she had also had happened to her was she was making the same salary that she started as in management 8 years prior. And as the year progressed, they found that they could homeschool, and they enjoyed it. And a lot of families did that, and a lot of families are still doing it. And now we're at a new beginning of a new year, and we're back at mass, and we're back with uncertainty. And that's why your jobs aren't being filled, because you have families across this city who have learned to do it on their own, and they're doing it successfully without fear. And that's why you have jobs sitting, because they don't have benefits, they don't have accelerated pay, and they're enjoying time with their children.
Right.
And I'll leave it at that. Good evening.
Ann, thank you. Ann, thank you for that. That's the shift. I mean, that's very interesting. I didn't know that fact, Ann, that the New York Times looked at the 250,000 jobs the Governor Lee talked about, and what did she say? A huge percentage were $20,000 or under. You had that one example, but that's very interesting. We're going to have to change that, right? I mean, some of that's going to have to change, and employers aren't excited about that. I mean, they're used to putting up a sign, having people come in, and they can't be excited about that. But this is maybe the beginning of a shift. The question is, how long does that last?
Well, that will also depend on, amongst other things, how long people. I think there are two parts to the story. The first story was, the last caller was talking about, is learning to do the old things in a new way and finding the meaning and joy of life, right, while doing so, and not getting too much exposure in terms of risk of catching the disease or whatever. So yes, that is a very, very valid point, but also we have to really think about another issue, is how much money we have already pumped into the economy. And what is this money actually doing? Has it really helped people to get a little bit more financial cushion, or maybe help them pay off some of the debts and they can wait out for a little bit, all that kind of stuff? So I'll give you some numbers. Between the March of 2020 and the March of 2021, that's 1 year period, we had 3 major stimulus packages going across 2 different administrations, President Trump and President Biden. So the first one was, what, $2.1 trillion. The second one was about $900 billion. Then the other one was about $1.9 trillion, right? So all in all, it's close to about $5 trillion, give or take. Now, when we talk about all those trillions of dollars, let's take a pause and say, how much money did we spend, really? What was that number? How does the $5 trillion look like if we were to distribute that money over everybody in the economy? How would it look like? Well, if you take the population to be 330-some million and you divide 5 trillion by that number, it turns out to be over $15,200 something per person. About $61,000 for a family of 4. Wow. Imagine that. And just to provide a contrast, the official federal poverty threshold for a family of 4 is $26,500. So in 1 year, we have spent enough money to get every man, woman, child of our country out of poverty for 2 years.
Did it go? I love that stat. I didn't know that. Did it go to them?
I don't know.
We don't.
But that is only one part. We have to also consider that there are over $4 trillion that Federal Reserve spent in terms of expanding its balance sheet. That is pumping money into the banks or buying the securities and whatnot. So that's a big sum of money. I mean, if you tell people that we as a country have spent between the 3 stimulus packages, we are talking about one more right now, and this is not a political issue, this is a financial issue, this is a basic economics. We have how many people in the country, how many family of 4 received a $61,000 check? I know I didn't.
I don't think many did. I mean,
$61,000 check for a family deposit. I mean, of course, there are $300 for children or something like a stimulus money, $1,400, $1,500. Those things apart, it's a very large amount of money. Now, also we have to really think about how, in other ways, we are spending money. I think the couple of callers who have been mentioning about the transition into different kind of jobs. And maybe we can, if we have time, we can talk about this from an educational standpoint later.
Okay, yeah. All right, we have to take a break, and we have another call. We'll take that when we come back. So hold on the line. We will take a break. Be back right after this.